The summer air in Florence was thick with the scent of jasmine and possibility when Elena first laid eyes on Aiden. She was standing beneath the arches of the Ponte Vecchio, her dark hair dancing in the warm breeze, when he approached with a map in his hands and wonder in his eyes. Their gazes met, and in that moment, the world seemed to pause, as if fate itself was holding its breath. "Scusi," Aiden said, his accent betraying his American roots. "Could you help me find my way to the Uffizi Gallery?" Elena smiled, her heart skipping a beat. "Of course," she replied, her English tinged with a melodic Italian lilt. "I was just heading that way myself. Would you like to walk together?" As they strolled through the cobblestone streets, their conversation flowed as easily as the Arno River beside them. Aiden was captivated by Elena's passion for art and her deep connection to her city. They spent lazy afternoons in hidden piazzas, sharing gelato and stolen kisses. Evenings were filled with laughter and wine in tiny trattorias, where they whispered promises of forever under the twinkling lights. But as August drew to a close, reality began to creep in like a shadow. Aiden's visa was expiring, and his job back in New York was calling. Elena's mother, battling a long illness, needed her daughter by her side. On their last night together, they stood atop the Piazzale Michelangelo, the city spread out before them like a tapestry of memories. Aiden took Elena's hands in his blue eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I don't want to leave you," he whispered, his voice breaking. Elena pressed her forehead against his, breathing in his scent one last time. "And I don't want to let you go, but we both have responsibilities, lives we can't just abandon." "We'll find a way back to each other," Aiden promised, his words carried away by the gentle night breeze. "This isn't goodbye, it's just until we meet again." As the sun rose on the day of Aiden's departure, the sky wept with them. They stood on the platform at Santa Maria Novella Station, the rain mingling with their tears. The train whistle pierced the air, a mournful sound that echoed the ache in their hearts. "Ti amo," Elena whispered as Aiden boarded the train, her voice barely audible over the rumble of the engine. "I love you too," Aiden called back, his hand pressed against the window as the train began to move. Elena watched until the train disappeared into the misty horizon, taking a piece of her heart with it. In the months that followed, they clung to their connection through a flurry of letters and late-night phone calls. Elena would sit by her mother's bedside, reading Aiden's poetic words aloud, finding comfort in the familiar curves of his handwriting. Aiden would walk the bustling streets of New York, imagining Elena's laughter mingling with the city sounds. But as time passed, the letters became less frequent, the calls shorter. Life, with all its demands and distractions, began to create a distance that seemed to grow with each passing day. Elena threw herself into caring for her mother and her work at the local art gallery. Aiden's writing career began to take off, his days filled with deadlines and book tours. They both held on to the fading photographs and memories, like precious artifacts from a dream they once shared. On quiet nights, Elena would stand on her balcony, gazing at the stars and wondering if Aiden was looking at the same sky. In his tiny New York apartment, Aiden would open his drawer, fingers tracing the edges of ticket stubs and dried flowers, reminders of a love that felt both eternal and impossibly distant. Years slipped by, seasons changing like the pages of a calendar. Elena's mother passed away, leaving her with a bittersweet mixture of grief and freedom. Aiden's novels found success, but left him feeling strangely empty, as if the words on the page could never capture the depth of what he'd experienced that summer in Florence. It was on a crisp autumn day, nearly a decade after they'd said goodbye, that fate intervened once more. Elena had traveled to New York for an art exhibition, her heart heavy with nostalgia as she walked the streets she'd only known through Aiden's stories. As she turned a corner, lost in thought, she collided with a stranger. "I'm so sorry," she began, looking up into a pair of achingly familiar blue eyes. "Elena?" Aiden breathed, his voice a mixture of disbelief and wonder. They stood frozen, the busy New York sidewalk fading away as they took in the changes time had wrought. Elena's once long hair was now cut short, framing a face that had grown more elegant with age. Aiden's boyish features had matured, a hint of silver at his temples. "Aiden," Elena whispered, her hand reaching out to touch his face, as if to make sure he was real. I can't believe it's you." They found themselves in a quiet cafe, words tumbling out as they tried to bridge the gap of years. Elena spoke of her mother's passing, of the art gallery she now owned. Aiden shared stories of his writing journey, of the empty spaces in his life that his success couldn't fill. As the afternoon light began to fade, a heavy silence fell between them. The love that had once burned so brightly still flickered, a persistent ember that refused to be extinguished. But they were no longer the carefree young lovers who had roamed the streets of Florence. Life had shaped them, changed them, created new dreams and obligations. "I never stopped loving you," Aiden confessed, his hand reaching across the table to grasp Elena's. But we're different people now," Elena finished, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "We've built separate lives." They walked together to Central Park, the autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, reminiscent of the Florentine sunsets they once shared. "Do you ever wonder," Elena asked softly, "what might have been if we'd found a way to stay together?" Aiden nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "Every day. But I think we were meant to have that perfect summer, to know that kind of love, even if we couldn't hold on to it forever." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, they knew it was time to say goodbye once more. This time, there were no promises of reunion, no desperate clinging to a future that might never come. Instead, there was a quiet acceptance, a bittersweet acknowledgement of a love that would always be a part of them. "Goodbye, Aiden," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper as she placed a gentle kiss on his cheek. "Goodbye, Elena," Aiden replied, squeezing her hand one last time before letting go. They parted ways, each carrying with them the memory of a love that had shaped them, changed them, and would forever remain a beautiful, aching reminder of what once was and what could never be again. As they walked in opposite directions, the distance between them grew, but the love in their hearts remained, a constant flame that would burn quietly for the rest of their days.